I'm doing a freehand drawing of this very old building in a German village using a 0.3mm fine liner pen. I want to remove the vertical lens distortion that has happened in this photo. So I want to make all the vertical lines actually vertical and not angling towards the center. In doing so though, I did end up reducing the foreshortening, I think, a bit too much in the top half of the building. So when you get to the end of the video, have a look at the overall effect and what do you think? Do you agree? If I were doing it again, I think I'd take care just to bring the top of the building down a little bit as I go up. But at least it still fit on the paper. Even if the very top point isn't within the camera, it was on the paper. I start with this door and then I move across to the left first, but I'm taking particular care to get my perspective line correct. It's my opinion that if we get our perspective angles correct in a building such as this, where they are such a dominant part of the overall visual effect, that it actually hides a lot of less accurate things, hopefully including my vertical foreshortening mistake. It's always slower at the start of a building drawing such as this, and there's a lot more referencing to the photo. Once our drawing progresses, then we have a lot of points on our paper that we can refer to and align off, particularly where things are directly above or below other things, such as these windows, which are directly above the windows underneath, which I've already drawn. Now I'm drawing this step forward part of these bay windows. And in the sections above the windows, just trying to suggest the detail of the fact that these come forward too. I don't want to draw this too exactly. I want to create the effect of these entablatures and architraves stepping in and out, in and out, in and out on top of the window supports without having to be measuring them all. And of course, the important thing is all of them keep within the perspective angles that we need for this part of the building. So I am wanting to draw this with a lighter touch the higher I go, and more line work at the bottom, which I think will give a sense of a stronger foundation because it is going to be a relatively tall building. I always like to work out what I'm doing with the insides of the windows early because sometimes it affects how I draw them, and it also gives me a sense of the overall effect of the building, but also just to exactly position where these windows are. Sometimes there can be enough lines that it's a bit distracting. I found it quite difficult, the fact that the building isn't symmetrical in the lower half, that you really have to get up to the third level before it takes on a symmetry. However, this just made observation all the more important. I thought before I went up and did the top half of the building though, I would finish the detail in the lower section, which I decided not to do straight away because I wanted to establish a bit more of the overall shape and just make sure that these parts of the building were positioned the way I wanted them to be positioned. Because once I put the detail in, it was going to visually establish where they all were, whereas without the detail, I could still shift them slightly, and certainly when we put hatching inside windows, it does allow us to slide the individual window panes to the left or right or up or down slightly, which can have a huge impact if our perspective isn't quite in the right place or the proportions aren't quite in the right place. At this stage, I'm not sure whether to put the LED lighting strips of the lower stories in the windows or not. So I leave them out and decide that will be the final decision that I make. Now I have decided to draw these upper sections with a lighter touch, and part of the way I make that happen is by drawing a little more quickly and not being so concerned with trying to make sure things are exactly in the right place. I was quite pleased to have something a bit different to draw with this section here once I'd positioned it. But again, because I was removing the lens distortion, I did have to pay attention, and I really wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, how it was going to look. Correct in the lens distortion, my principle is that I use eye level as my fixed point for where the vertical lines will be in the building. And then in this case, below that, I pulled the lines in towards the center, and above eye level, I shifted the lines out towards the edges. More significantly, the further away from eye level we went, particularly uphill. So now I do this other side. It's a very different architectural flourish, and it doesn't go as high as the other one does. And that's the sort of detail it's easy to miss. Now again, I do a lot of measuring of these perspective angles because it's important to get them correct. The lens distortion hasn't affected the perspective angles. I still want to get them right because that helps to give a feel for the height of this building. You'll notice I use very light lines to try at this point to try and get a sense of where things are positioned, and I know that not every part of the drawing is in the correct place, so often that means then there's slight compromises in where we put things that we haven't yet drawn. So I'm wanting now to draw with this lighter touch from here up. The really important thing now is to keep these perspective lines accurate, particularly as the angles become greater and greater. If one's not quite right, it'll be more and more obvious. And it's not just the perspective lines from one floor of the building to another, but it's also the perspective lines connected with the windows, these horizontal supports or separations between windows. It's important that they all line up precisely in terms of their angle between the ones above and the ones below. So now I have these decorative gable elements. I have more success with some of them than others. This isn't a great one here that I'm just doing, but I'm particularly just now wanting to get a fairly brisk gestural effect, fortunately, which is a style which is very forgiving for lines not being quite right. And again, this is where having the perspective angles correct will draw most of the visual attention with the building. So I work getting this next floor in place. Again, this floor is a little bit too high to what I would do if I were doing it again. And this is where it's good to critique our drawing afterwards and to have a focus for the next time I draw. So the next time I do a building such as this and I'm removing the lens distortion, I'll make particular care that I don't reduce the vertical foreshortening in the way I did in this one. So I'm getting close to the top. I'm going to run out of camera range when I do the very top part of this, but I fortunately do fit it onto the paper. Very light gestural marks here now. And then when I've got to the top, I go back down and I just strengthen some of those middle lines, just so there's a bit of a transition from the lighter lines at the very top to the heavier ones at the bottom. I've got these last little windows with their shutters with little hearts on them. I just realized I don't think I put the figure inside this little niche up the top. Never mind. Just drawing the pediment there out of view, and now I strengthen some of the line work in this center section, and then I have to decide what I'm doing with these windows down the bottom. And I do decide in the end that I'm going to put the LED lighting lines in place. I don't need to do the vertical ones because the vertical hatching lines are adequate for that, but I decide that I think it will add to the detail of this closer part. It's always good to have more detail with the parts of a drawing that are closest to the viewer. And while the whole building is in a sense the same distance away, as it gets higher and higher, it does become further and further away. So it's helpful to establish that closer proximity with a bit more detail. So these horizontal LED light bars are a good way of doing that. You'll notice I go right across the three windows that are together with each bar, and that I find is simply the best way to get the alignment that we need, particularly in these closest windows to us. Then it's just really looking at a few details, working out what we want. If you'd like to draw this, I'm putting my reference photo into my YouTube channel community page. So go and have a look for it there, and you're going to have a go at drawing this freehand in ink yourself. You'll notice that I do use a lot of light lines just to help me work out where my main structures are going before I start to fill in the detail. Hope you have fun with it.